Okay, what up ladies and gents, it's your favorite Asian robot right here, hopefully your favorite official content creator for the First Descendant, and today I'm going to talk to you about my Keelan build. I'm going to show you how I built him up, you know, all his base stats, all that kind of stuff. We're going to go through all that, well, his base skills rather. We're going to go through all of that, and then I'm going to explain to you how I built him, why I built him, and then we'll do some demonstrations to prove how he works, okay? So, let's go through it together. I'm not going to waste your time. Let's get right into it, all right? First things first, when it comes to Keelan, what you need to understand is his basic skills. This is very important because, unlike with other characters, Keelan's got a bit of a split in the skills, and that later on affects his reactor choice, external components, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go through that with you, so give me a moment. Let's go to the module section. All right, we'll go through the modules a little bit later. We're just going to use this to talk about his skills first, so let's address that one at a time, okay? So first and foremost is his skill. Actually, you know what? I should probably move my camera. Okay, first and foremost is his passive skill, Erosion. Erosion states that when you use a skill, you increase his acidic infusion level. That's the bar below your skill bar. All right, and you will grant yourself the agility effect. Each stack of agility, and the maximum stacks you can have is 4, each stack of agility will grant you 28% skill power modifier. Take note that it's not skill power, it's skill power modifier. And will also grant you 12.5% movement speed, maxing out at 60%, which means that at maximum stacks of acidic infusion, for 10 seconds, you can run as fast as Bunny. Let's see this in action right now. If I were to use my skills right now, okay? So I do that. Did you see? The level goes up, down the bottom, right there. So he doesn't have an MP level, but instead he has these, all right? The acidic infusion. Some of his abilities will consume acidic infusion. Some of his abilities will grant him acidic infusion. All right, and although they said that if you stay out of combat for about 10 seconds, it will be fine. Unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't gradually drop. It just drops all at once, which is kind of weird, but it is how it is. So that's how acidic infusion works, okay? All right, so now you understand his passives. Let's carry on talking about the rest of his skills. So that is his passive ability. Every time you're using a skill, you gain this acidic infusion, which is used to empower his last 2 skills. But let's start at the top. His first skill is called Void Corrosion. This one is unique because this one allows you to fire rockets. Now, by default, you have 4 rockets, but each time you increase your maximum range, you can actually fire even more rockets. And the thing is, I went with maximum range here, and I'll show you that a bit later, because I found that doing so, although the max target count is 10%, which requires like only skill expansion plus a little bit of extra range to do, I found that it's better to go further because there are other skills that also are empowered by that. So this is why I chose to max out his range, like literally max it out. But anyway, the more you increase his range, the more targets he can hit with this skill. This one can be fired while firing your gun. It can be used in the middle of other actions. It is very similar to Haley's first skill. So do not hesitate to actually use this skill while shooting or while in combat. Let me show you a quick demonstration. All right. Now, I don't care about the Vulgus level. Sorry, I just want the maximum quantity of Vulgus. We're just going to spawn him right there. So while I'm shooting my gun, take note that I do not have to interrupt the shooting, all right, to fire my rockets. And with the correct inversion reinforcer, you can fire quite a few rockets, all right? So do take note of that, okay? So I hope that information helps. The Void Corrosion is very useful, so spam it frequently because, again, it's not going to cost you anything. Every 3 seconds, you got to shoot, all right? Just shoot. Now, Onslaught is his second skill. This is his dash. He can have up to 5 stacks of Onslaught, and each stack, assuming you're using my build, will take about 13.5 seconds to cooldown. Otherwise, it's 55 seconds to cooldown per stack. Now, the stack's cooldown reduction per enemy pierced is 5 seconds, which means you must at least pierce 2 enemies each time. I highly recommend piercing at least 2 to 3 enemies each time because that will help you. The maximum reduction count that you can get is 3 times, so always aim to at least hit 3 enemies with the pierce. Now, what do I mean by pierce? Well, this skill actually has 2 types of damage, okay? The first is the piercing damage, and the second is a burst damage, which is why when you are specifically targeting some bosses, you want to actually stop your attack right where you're about to hit him or just past him so that there will be a 14.9 meter radius around them where you can pierce them and explode around them. So you want to do that, all right? This gives you additional damage and, you know, just helps you kill them harder. All right. If the target already has acidic erosion on it, then the pierce target will take additional damage. Right? So there's first the pierce damage, then the burst damage, and if they already have acidic erosion, meaning that you've hit them once already, then they will take additional damage. Now, this means that, now please keep in mind all of your skills inflict acidic erosion, except for Septic Gust, which can inflict septicemia as well. All right, so do take note of that. All right, so now that you understand that, let's demonstrate it. So his second skill, okay, you want to pierce the target. This is what it means to pierce the target, okay? Now, I'm going to set up only a single Vulgus so that you can see. But if I swap it to a single Vulgus like that, if you pierce through him correctly, note that they take multiple instances of damage. See that? Okay, so this is how that works. They take an additional damage and 2 instances of damage. One is the burst around them and one is the pierce damage. If you do not pierce them, they will just take the burst damage. Do you see that? They will just take the burst damage, but they won't take the pierce damage. So make sure that when you're going for a boss, you're hitting the target directly. This is quite crucial. Okay? All right, now that you understand that as well, let's move on. Next, we'll talk about Septic Gust. Septic Gust has a 20.9 meter radius around you, and it will simply deal, okay? It will simply deal, with my build, 633.8% of skill power, and actually there's even more of an increase, which you will see later on. It actually goes up to about 700%, and then with your passives, that's even more. So this is pretty fantastic. It is a singular type skill, okay? And the radius is massive with this build, so abuse that radius. It's the equivalent of a nice bunny ring. Now, if the target already has acidic decay is referring to acidic erosion, okay, because all of his skills inflict acidic erosion. I don't know why this still says acidic decay, all right, but acidic decay is literally referring to the number of times that the enemy has been inflicted with acidic erosion, okay, because there's no more acidic decay. If an enemy is already inflicted with acidic decay, you get blood rot, which has been renamed to septicemia. All right. Septicemia will last for 1 second and it will cause them to explode. So for example, let's say you've already pierced through targets or you've already fired your rockets at targets. You can then hit them with Septic Gust and they all detonate, which is absolutely beautiful. So use Septic Gust after firing rockets, okay, because you want that. It's also best when enemies are grouped up. You can use it sort of almost like a corpse explosion kind of dealio. All right. Last but not least is Tremor. Tremor is unique because if an enemy is inflicted with acidic decay or acidic erosion in this case, every stack of acidic erosion, all right, will result in 1,767% damage dealt per stack. What is the maximum stacks of acidic erosion? 5 stacks baseline. So this skill hits hard, okay? But it has another use. Now, keep in mind that this skill, you have to be within 6 meters of the target. If you're not within 6 meters of the target, you can actually use it to reload your onslaught stacks, okay? So throughout my streams, you would have seen me reload my onslaught stacks. This is how you do it. Okay? You use your Tremor, you abuse it, and you can get your dash stacks back, which is absolutely useful, okay? So now that you understand Keelan's skills, all right, let's go into his reactor, external components, weapons, all that kind of stuff, and of course his module build. We'll go through all that in a full explanation. Let me remove my green screen. Okay. Starting with his reactor, I chose a Toxic Singularity reactor. This focuses on the power of Septic Gust as well as Onslaught. It will lower the power of Tremor as well as your main missile shots, but that's okay. In terms of these stats that are important, it is most important to roll cooldown and then whatever else. Okay, I've upgraded this 4 times because I don't have a perfectly rolled reactor on him, but I still wanted to make use of a gold reactor. Do not make use of a purple reactor because now that can only go up 2 levels, which is not very viable here. What are the ideal rolls on your reactor? You should be getting skill cooldown, okay, and singular skill power boost for Keelan. These are the absolute best choices for him. Cooldown, singular skill power boost ratio. If you get toxic boost ratio, that's also good. Do not use anything else for his farming, okay? In terms of external components, the main question that everybody asks, can I use Slayer Set? Yes, you absolutely can, okay? But if you use the Slayer set, take note that his survival is lower. I've found that I do not actually need the Slayer set to overcome most difficult things in the game, and I will happily demonstrate that during the 400% run, during the Void Vessel run. Okay, so what I've done is I've just used a HP external component, the 2 of the Annihilation Sense set. Why? Because I happen to really like this set and the bonuses it gives. Okay, and that's about it. All right, so I went HP, Annihilation, Annihilation Sensor, Annihilation Memory, and a HP Support Processor. What kind of stats should the external components have? For your auxiliary power, HP, and I would really suggest module drop rate. You do not need MP recovery out of combat because Keelan does not have MP. All right, you can also use other stuff if you really want to, but realistically, I would just chuck on module drop rate increase, and that is fine. For his sensor, for the Annihilation Sensor, okay, again, you do not need max MP. So what are you actually going to use? I would highly recommend, okay, if you're not going to go for the consumable drop rates, which is, again, not always necessary, you can actually go for the same one that Glay uses and chuck on the HP recovery modifier, which helps him out to survive. And you can also take shield recovery out of combat, which is pretty useful for him. All right, but this is not a shield-based build, so he does not benefit a lot from that. Next is the Annihilation Memory. So for the memory, once again, MP recovery modifier is not necessary, which means you can actually, once again, apply the same thing that Glay does, which is max HP defense, and you can even have a firearm proficiency gain if you want to use him for a little bit of farming, but literally the world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want. Shield recovery, is it shield recovery modifier or is it shield recovery in combat? I can't remember, but the defense support memory has one of those. If you're using him for farming, you can also go for gold drop rate increase if you want to. Okay, so the choice is yours. You do not have to use the MP recovery modifier if you don't want to. I would personally use the same thing that I use on Glay, which for now is the defense and firearm proficiency. You can actually use something else if you want. Like, for example, you can use some resistances, things like that. The choice is yours. Defense is important, but you can roll whatever else you want for the other stat, okay? And last but not least, for his HP support processor, or for any support processor that you choose to use, you would go for max shield and, well, I mostly use Keelan for farming, and this is a farming build, so I would go for equipment drop rate modifier, but you can also go for the shield recovery modifier if you would like, all right? Especially good if you have shield recovery in combat on your memory. But me personally, equipment drop rate modifier is usually good because this helps me with reactor farming. So this is what I've got on Keelan. Like I said, you can use the Slayer set, you can use other sets, but in general, you want to try and give him enough survival so that he can survive through some of the toughest content. All right, and that is what I do for Keelan using his reactor and external components. Now, let's move on to weapons. Now, since I'm using a gold reactor, what weapons are actually suitable for Keelan? Funnily enough, because Keelan does really well in the Void Vessel, all right, solo runs, of course, and at 400%, I actually use the Voltia with Keelan. Now, keep in mind that as I mentioned in my Voltia video, I'm using a supplementary build for the Voltia, which is the main build right here. Okay, it is not his main means of dealing damage. It's designed to supplement his damage dealing capabilities because Keelan actually deals most of his damage through his skills, and again, this will be seen through the demonstration. So I use Voltia, and you've got 2 other options. For me, I put hand cannon, beam rifle on my reactor, so I've got my perforator here if I ever need it, as well as the Voltia for Void Vessel. So I could swap and use either one. It would not affect me in the least, okay? Enduring Legacy is also a good choice, and pretty much every descent is going to carry one, so you can have your third one be Enduring Legacy mounting, and that way Keelan is always mounted with something good. Okay, so this is what I use in terms of his weapons. Now, let's move on to the actual modules. So, if you want to talk about Keelan's modules, how do you actually build them up, and why do you build them up in this particular way? Well, let's talk about it step by step. Mid-air maneuvering is going to be your sub-attack module of choice. It should be pretty obvious why. Gives him mobility, all that kind of stuff. In terms of survival, I've got increased HP and stim accelerant. If you feel that you can survive enough, you can drop increased HP, which actually provides less than stim accelerant. And you can use whatever else you want in this slot. Totally up to you. Choice is yours. I wouldn't do it, but you can do it if you want to. Next is his utility. I've got skill expansion and maximize range. You have to have both of these in order to max out the range of his skills, giving him big AoE for dealing with things fast, okay? Especially because the eruption on onslaught is only 5 meters. So by having both of these, I can increase that up to 14.9 meters, which is pretty fantastic. Gives him a nice large AoE. So he detonates basically at the end of his thrust, which allows you to almost guarantee a double hit on any target, all right? Nimble Fingers and MP conversion are pretty much necessary for Keelan because he has to reduce his cooldowns. And again, he doesn't have MP, so minus 15% MP, who cares, right? Keelan only relies on cooldown, so having both of these is important to max out his DPS. Next, you will want to use skill simplification to increase his skill power modifier because this affects all of his skills, all right? Keep in mind that his first and fourth skill are fusion type, whereas his second and third skill are singular, all right? So this is why I use skill simplification instead. And again, max MP gone, who cares? Next, power increase and toxic amplification is the ideal damage combination, but because Keelan's cooldowns are abysmal, you need focus on toxic instead. You will be sacrificing quite a bit of damage. I believe you are actually sacrificing roughly 15% of your potential damage output by my rough calculations. However, although you're sacrificing that humongous increase in damage, you get better cooldowns, which Keelan is so reliant on. So it makes your fights a lot better. I'd rather sacrifice the damage and cooldown more for convenience when speedrunning. All right. So I use focus on toxic for that and toxic amplification to up his skill power. And then I use singular amplification because the main damage dealers are singular. Okay. So I use this. I did test it out with Dangerous Ambush as well. Okay. This was another option. But Dangerous Ambush, despite the fact that it's giving you extra skill power, was actually underperforming. So it actually drastically underperformed in comparison to singular amplification. So singular amplification, I feel, is the way to go with Keelan. If you disagree, you can use something else. There's no right or wrong answer. Another good one that some people like to use is actually Decimator. Okay, so you can get an extra 50% skill power modifier with this. But, I mean, up to you, you know, because this singular amplification only affects skills 2 and 3. It will not affect skill 1 and 4. So some people chose Decimator instead. The choice is really yours. But I've gone with singular amplification, and this is what works well for me. Okay, so now that you guys have seen the module build, all right, for farming, you guys have seen the reactor and the weapons and all that. Let's go do some testing. All right, let's go do some demonstrations. First and foremost, we'll return to Albion, and then I will speed run a Void Vessel run, showing you what Keelan can do. I'll do a Void Vessel run, and then I'll do a 400% demonstration. Again, this build is designed for farming, and Keelan is a speedrunner. He is a speedrunner. Okay? So do not hesitate. Let's get into it.
You need information about
wrong place. Nice dance. Okay, we're going to go to Void Vessel Hard, Private Operation. Let me show you what Keelan can do. Keelan is nasty if played correctly and absolutely devastating in terms of the amount of damage he can deal. I know a lot of people said some nonsense like, oh, Keelan does low damage and stuff like that. Yeah, well, you're going to need a robot build, pal. You don't have a robot build, then there's very little I can do to help you. Okay? So, well, see for yourself. There's no use in me yapping. I'm not the type to yap, so I'd rather show you guys with actual results. So let's go see some actual results, shall we?
Launching Void Vessel Exploration Operation.
Okay, when things first start, I will usually just relax, take it easy. Okay. Now, as soon as this happens, launch. All right. Launch, pierce. Notice how often I launch the missiles? Because it's free. Why would I worry, you know? Anything else that survives, get hit him with a Septic Gust. Alright. Not enough charges? Just reload your charges. Oops, sorry. If something has acidic corrosion in between there, your charges won't reload. So, just be careful of that. Okay? You want to be careful of your charges not reloading properly. Okay? Kill him. Reload your dash charges. Strike. Anybody else not dead yet? Okay, good. Everybody's dead. Now let's move on. Now this is where the fun begins. See, what I like to do is this. I can fly. So with Keelan, the best part about Keelan, now keep in mind that skills 3 and 4 will cost you acidic infusion. So use them when you are certain that you can make good use of the charges. Okay, so I use them to just get around like that. It's a little fast little way of going through stuff. There you go. Oh no! Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Now I can fly up, do this, and fly up again. Alright, this is a very cheap way of overcoming puzzles and stuff. So, you know, just remember you don't actually have to fight through them. Now this is where the fun begins. Oops, messed up my septic gust there. Should have waited.
You can't run away. Move.
As long as you pierce through at least 3, you're getting the maximum amount of cooldown reduction. So abuse that. Alright, abuse that.
You can't run away.
And you'll have a good time.
You can't run away. This is your round.
Okay.
My shield's down.
Now because this dash is literally very mobile and you can do, well, pretty much whatever you want, abuse it. Alright, you can also go through lasers, as you guys know. So just do that. And you're good. You're good.
This is your end. Shield's broken. This is your...
Where possible, I just make use of everything that I've got. Alright, there you go.
Move. Shield's broken.
Grab that, head down. Now, some of you might ask about inversion reinforcer. It is literally whatever you want. I'll have a separate guide on the inversion reinforcer for this season. Alright, but for now you can just do whatever you want. Whatever you feel is best. I'm not going to comment on that because what I have suits me. If you really want to, you can adjust accordingly, but yeah. Do as you need. Okay.
This is your round.
Pick a side. Pierce.
I'll kill you. Too slow. Shield's down.
Now with the cooldown reductions to Keelan, there is actually some extra viability now because Septic Gust is a lot better than it was before. Now it's actually like semi-useful as a skill. Previously it was just a nice little supplement for me, but its cooldown is still fairly long, so even with this, you have to suffer a little bit. Okay, let's go. Now remember, you can skip, but if you still run into a laser at the end of the dash, you still hit it, so be careful of that. Alright, otherwise just abuse the ability to skip stuff and pretty much just skip everything. Now you might be saying, wait a second, aren't you giving up comms beacons and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, I don't need any of that anymore. And once you don't need it anymore, there's no point in having it, so... Try to the best of your extent, maintain your bonuses, but keep note you can't trigger any abilities here, so I try to maintain my bonuses like so. I know I've got roughly 10 seconds each time before agility cancels, and before it cancels, I'll usually pump it up one more time, just like that. Okay, now you're in the room. Something like that. Now come here. Come here. Okay, so same practice, all right. There you go. There you go. First phase done. Okay. And of course, solo, you get to see the full power Keelan versus the team play mode, where sometimes your damage will have to carry. Okay, use your Voltia in the Void Vessel, as you know. Alright, this will help you. As you can see, I abuse the ability of Keelan to fire his rockets. So I'll dash in, fire rockets, and carry on from there. Now, if you get hit with this and die, don't worry, it's not going to affect your timer much. There we go. He's dead. Even if you die, he's dead, so there you go. And just like that, that's about a 7-minute, 12-second run. I can do about 650 if I'm very cautious, but there you go. That's Keelan's Void Vessel just done right there. You guys have seen it for yourself. Now let's go do the 400%, and I'll show you how Keelan farms in the 400%. It's pretty much the same thing. You just dash through targets, blast, dash, blast. It's just a never-ending story, okay? So you have to think too hard, okay? Thinking too hard is not required. Just go hard instead. Okay, don't think too hard. Just go hard. Okay, so trying to avoid wasting too much of your time, let's go in there. Hard infiltration operation. We'll just pick any of the 400%. So it could be the Asylum. It could be whatever else you want. We can go to Kingston, Slumber Valley. I think Slumber Valley is a bit faster, so we'll go into that. 400%. Here we go. Private operation. Let's get it done. All right. And the same things will work in team play, but do take note that Keelan has one weakness in team play. As you notice, Keelan's damage is very bursty. Once he runs out of dashes, he can't really do much. So in team fights, unlike Bunny, Viessa, or Freyna, who can deal more sustained damage, i.e. damage over time, over a period of time that is sustained, Keelan is just like, I've got 5 dashes, I'm going to hit you with this, and then either I reload my dashes or that's kind of it. So you do have that slight weakness with Keelan. It can be seen as a sort of negative, but I leave it up to you to determine whether it is or isn't. But for me personally, this is fun. Use and abuse the skills, alright? But don't leave anything behind, because the one thing that happens here, especially in this one, is somebody leaves something behind and then you're not going to have a great time. You're going to have a bad time. Okay, pretty much. So just be careful of that. Now, once again, when it comes to piercing, I always try and pierce 3. That is extremely important. Failure to pierce at least 3 means less cooldowns, and you don't really want that. Okay. But the other great thing about Keelan is his sort of like movement flexibility. You don't really have to care where you're going, you know? As long as you're going. Okay, there we go. Clear. Just be aware that sometimes you go too fast. You might miss 1 or 2, so always clear the area completely. That is quite important, unfortunately. There's no easy way around it. Reload your dashes as needed. So usually when mob clearing, I will do a lot of dash reloads as needed, of course. Because don't forget, your tremor is on a cooldown, so you don't want to be spamming it for no reason and then miss out on actually being able to use your skills properly. Nice little bunny ring there. There you go. Now those sequences where they just sort of line up for you, now those are my favorite. You literally can't go wrong with that one. Okay, and remember that multiple rockets from his first skill can actually hit the same target, so use and abuse that as well. Up close and personal, you can treat it like a shotgun, which I really like.
Too slow. Shield's broken. You can't run away. Too slow. Shield's down. Too slow.
As you can see, I reload his dashes fairly frequently whenever I need to. Alright, I do not hesitate, because if you don't reload his dashes, you will end up losing out for no reason. Not really a wise decision.
Shield's broken. You can't run away.
So use and abuse the dash reloads, because you'll be easily able to get back your acidic infusions anyway. Alright? Your only real enemy is cooldowns.
Too slow. Shield's down. This is gonna hurt.
Okay.
Move. Too slow.
There you go. Now here.
You can't run away. Wither. Take that. You can't run away. Move. Too slow. Too slow. Shield's broken. Melt away. Damn it. My shield's down. Shield's down.
Notice how I'm angling the shots so that I always try and pierce through 3 people. That's usually the best way to do things. There we go.
This is your end. Move.
There we are. Nice and easy. And no need to think too much. Okay, let's move.
Move.
Okay, ladies and gents, the most important thing is ABL. What does that stand for? Always be lazy. Okay? Now with this, you need to know who to kill first. So usually I go for Ledros because Ledros is, well, garbage. As you can see,
Shield's down.
he is absolutely weak. So use and abuse him.
You can't run away. Too slow. Shield's broken.
Dash reloaded. Okay, Ledros is out. Now Greg is out. So he's gonna go up there and hide like a nerd.
You can't escape.
That was very silly of me.
You can't run away.
Okay. Now he's gonna do this thing. Then fire.
I'll kill you all.
Gust.
You can't run away.
Then detonate. The final one, I always use Tremor to detonate, and there you go. Okay, so that's a quick run with Keelan. There you go. Now, some people have asked, is he faster than Bunny? I would say that Keelan is about the same speed, but depending on how well you can target enemies, he actually ends up about 30 seconds slower than Bunny on most runs. Okay? So you do have to be aware that he is faster in the boss rooms. Compared to a solo Bunny, he is much faster in the boss rooms actually. But by comparison, in a lot of the areas, Bunny can just run up and down a room, pull herself around, and she will kill everything. Whereas Keelan has to deliberately target enemies and things like that. So is he fast enough? Well, I personally believe so. There are some runs, right, where he actually excels against Bunny and actually outcompetes Bunny simply because the enemies are all lined up. But overall, he is slower than Bunny for most runs. That being said, he does better in the boss room. So it really just boils down to how fast you can go and how good you are with playing him. All right. So that is my Keelan build, including demonstrations. I hope you guys have gotten a full picture of Keelan. Thank you very much for listening to this video. I know it was long. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to enjoy Keelan's build because it is absolutely excellent. And I absolutely love playing it. It is so much fun. I'll be working on his bossing build at a later stage, as you guys know. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, thank you to all of our top supporters. All right. I'm having a bit of technical difficulties today, so I cannot pull up the list that I normally do. But I just want you guys to know that I thank all of you. And either way, you guys are displayed on every single stream that we do. So thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one, okay? Don't do anything weird while I'm gone. Catch you later.